Monetary economics is important for us to fully understand blockchains. Monetary economics is also useful to see where cryptocurrencies fit in. So let's take a step back. Let's go back to 1944, when the Bretton Woods Agreement was put into place. The idea of the Bretton Woods Agreement was to fix major currencies to the US dollar, whereas the US dollar was then fixed to gold at $35 per ounce of gold. And this fixed system went on up until 1971, when President Richard Nixon pulled the U.S. out of Bretton Woods and let the dollar float freely. Now, this has a big impact on everything any country does. In fact, many countries then resorted to turning some of their gold supplies into regular reserve currencies. That is, they bought up other currencies to protect their own interests. Their central banks wanted to make sure their currencies were stable and could serve their economies well by stocking up on other countries' currencies so they could move their currency to the right levels. So in general, a reserve currency is a trusted currency. So, for example, no country wants to stock up on someone else's currency and that other currency evaporates. Then you'll lost a lot of money or wasted a lot of money. So trust plays a very important role in reserve currencies. At the same time, there's an idea of a numeraire. A numeraire is also a special type of currency. A numeraire is a currency where people also use it as reserves, but on top of that, they trust it for business and other economic transactions. Of course, it has to be very stable if you're going to do business transactions in this numeraire. And its management by the central bank ideally is neutral to how you are going to use this in your business. For example, if a firm in the Galactic Empire wants to trade with another firm in the United Federation of Planets, these two firms may write their contract in a currency or the numeraire that belongs to the land of Oz. Now, why would they use Oz as currency? Well, one, it has to be stable, and also it should be neutral to their interests. Neither of these businesses, whether they're in the Galactic Empire or in the United Federation of Planets, has any insight to the land of Oz's central bank. So the central bank acts neutral. The numeraire sounds like a great thing, and it is. It's just like to be a heavily used reserve currency is fabulous. You're probably a stable currency. Everybody wants your currency, therefore they may have to buy financial instruments in your currency to store it for a while. That makes it cheaper for you to borrow or even your firms to borrow. However, one questionable consequence for being a numeraire or a heavily used reserve currency is Triffin's dilemma. And Triffin's dilemma says, if the land of Oz has the numeraire that the Galactic Empire wants to use, as well as the United Federation of Planets wants to use, or at least firms, organizations in these two countries, in that case, the land of Oz has to be a little sensitive and keep itself neutral. Just as in a boxing match, sometimes the referee gets hit, that can also happen with the numeraire. The numeraire may have to take a few punches now and then while trying to remain neutral, and in fact may have to pay a little bit of attention to the economy in the Galactic Empire and the United Federation of Planets to ensure that its numeraire status stays. So Triffin's dilemma says, if you're the numeraire, then you actually may harm your own economy sometimes in order to maintain the numeraire status, which is, of course, expressed as a dilemma. Now, all that said, currencies in general depend on technology. So this is an important phenomenon already of neutrality, which is a great idea and a hard thing to implement. But currencies must also, and they always have, for as long as they've existed, depend on technology to prevent people from forging them and prevent people from faking them. So for example, in coins, we have reeded edges, and these edges you might find on some of your coins. And the reason it's there is folks used to deface the currencies or coins by scraping off a little metal as they transacted through those coins. So they would end up with a large pile of some valued metal and sell it. But of course, that defaces the currency, which is a problem. So technology of minting coins very carefully and with very good print and reeded edges was there. Likewise, there's even paper currencies have lots of technology in them, little threads, microprint, special paper, special inks, and all these other things, watermarks. These are high-tech things to prevent fraud or people passing off bills improperly or fake ones. And in addition, there's been a lot of electronic technology used for currencies. For example, the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States was created in 1913, and within a few years, they were using telegraph to send money back and forth to banks and other central banks called Fedwire in 1915. So just a couple of years later, they're actually cutting ahead of the pack there. Similarly, since the 1950s, globally, people have been using electronics funds transfer. These electronic funds transfers also depend on a single source of truth and understanding that we're not faking the currency or losing any of the currency. And so likewise, with that single source of truth, you can see in central banking, very often what happens in a central bank is the central bank sits between other banks. So when there's one bank transfers a check or a wire between another bank, it goes through the central bank. So the central bank, at the end of the day, literally sometimes, can determine through accounting which banks have certain amounts of money. And they can keep track of that because the central banks are the keepers of the amount of money out there. So they can actually do that. So this is important for the traditional model. We have a central source of truth, the central bank. Now, in the case of cryptocurrencies, we change the game here. In cryptocurrencies, the idea is we'll just go peer-to-peer. We'll skip this central source of truth. And this central source of truth also makes sure that the currency, when it comes to cash and dollars or paper or pounds or euros or any other currency or rupiah, it is in fact printed well, and it is carefully done, so forgery is hard or impossible almost. Nonetheless, cryptocurrencies change that game completely and say we're not going to depend on an agency or a government or a mint to carefully build a hard-to-forge currencies. In fact, we're going to depend on cryptography. And the cryptography will be, in effect, the cryptography itself, in a way, is a central source of truth. Mathematically, we don't know how to crack crypto in general. And this allows us to trust the strong or the hard problems that were chosen through cryptography to keep the truth there. So we remove the central point of trust and put that or replace it with crypto. And that is a big deal. That's the high level of why crypto is so important. So cryptocurrencies, by replacing a single source of trust, in particular political agencies or agencies that may be influenced politically with cryptographic agencies, also will be independent of firms, whether they're in the Galactic Empire or the United Federation of Planets, completely independent. They don't have to worry about it because it's all based on the cryptography, which is kind of awesome. And so it also relieves us of Triffin's paradox for that reason.